Hello. What's up? Well, that camera's pretty zoomed in. Hold on. Let's zoom that bad boy out a little bit. That's pretty zoomed in. What's up, everybody? How's it going? I'm trying something new today. Hopefully it'll work. I think I can stream licensed music, but I don't want to get too freaky. With it just yet. Also, I moved my microphone, so hopefully I will be in frame or in focus moving forward. Hopefully. I was going to go to bed, but then I saw premiering live at 10:15. Yeah, sorry for the late stream today, guys. I was in charge of putting my son down. Hopefully my microphone will like stop moving. I had to put my son down to bed tonight, so I figured I needed to push it back a little bit. His bedtime is 8 o'clock. So sorry for the delay on that. We're also going to be doing something a little bit different today. Like I said, this is just going to be one whole stream. And then when this ends, you can see it on my channel, but it will not be like promoted on the YouTube's like recommended page. And instead I will re-upload the segments of today's video, whether that's the MVPS layout review or the if A then be paintball and some other things that we'll talk about today. And that's how we're going to do it moving forward. So rather than having multiple stream links where I lose people when we transition to those different streams, it's just going to be one continuous stream. We're going to be here for the ride. It's going to be kind of hanging out more so than it has been. So we're just going to be chilling. I have some things I want to talk about today, which I think will be a lot of fun. But at the top of this, before we do any of that, very first thing is merch is here. As you guys know, merch is here. If you're curious at buying your own SVP Paintball dry fit t-shirt or jersey, there's a link in the description down below you can check out. The first order of merch that has been placed has been sent to Daizana. So that should be being fulfilled here in the next like 3 to 4-ish weeks. Hopefully as soon as possible, but that's the turnaround time that I've been given. So yeah, be patient with that, but I appreciate you guys being super supportive. I think we had about 7 or 8 orders by the end of it, which was awesome. So thank you guys so much. And then also be sure to join the Discord server. Be sure to like the stream if you're watching it right now. I appreciate you guys who have done that already so far. And be sure to have a wonderful evening. Let's talk about the first thing that I wanted to mention, or that I wanted to talk about tonight, which is really just this idea of what do I do in preparation for my first tournament, or how do I prepare for my first tournament? And in fact, let me actually just let me try something here, guys. We're getting a little frisky here. I'm not sure this is gonna work, guys. If I get taken down, it's I don't know, it's probably Jeff Bezos' fault or something. Okay, so yeah, I was asking the Discord server, hey, how do I prep for my first tournament ever? And if I think back in the first tournament that I ever had, which was there was a 3-man event, a rookie 3-man event. The first thing that I failed at preparing is not getting enough sleep. So that's definitely the first thing. But if we were to separate this in 2 categories, the one half being, what do I do well before the event? And then what do I do like right before the event? I think well before the event, the most important thing is to just play as much as you can and have fun with it, right? Especially if it's your first event. You can't really have a ton of expectations about how you're going to do, how you're going to place and stuff like that. And more than anything, it's just you want to have a good experience your first event. If you don't, you're not going to come back, so on and so forth, right? But definitely, I would just say that if you're not active and you're going to go play your first event, just go run as much as you can. Not for as long as you can, but just like every day, run for like 30 minutes. Because if you can also not be like super, super winded by the time you finish running, that'll be super, super helpful. So let me think. What else? These are kind of weird zones. I'm not sure I agree with those. It's going to have to probably be that. But as far as like the day before, my biggest thing is, and it is, in my experience, it is true. I really do think you should absolutely eat a big carb meal, something with pasta, and then make sure to get plenty of sleep, especially because a lot of events happen much earlier than people are used to waking up, at least for me, right? Sometimes I have to wake up at like 5 in the morning for an event, and I don't wake up at 5 in the morning. So something to be aware of. These zones are going to be super, super awkward. But so that'd be the first thing I would say, is just make sure to get some exercise in well before the event, get as many reps in as possible, and put in the work, you know, do a bunch of snap shooting drills if you can. Get in a lot of gunfight experience with some teammates that'll push you, or just some people that are better than you. That'll make you very confident to play in the division you're playing in. And then, like I said, the night before, good carb meal, get plenty of sleep, and then just have fun, right? Like, it's just paintball. Who cares if you get shot? Who cares if you get dunked on? There's always next point, right? And there's always next event. So, okay. Well, let's talk now then about the MVPS layout. And if you guys have any other questions, feel free to message it in the chat or my Discord server. I'm always, always here to answer questions. Sorry, I'm just looking. A couple months now. There's some people talking about HK Army retro joggers. Let me actually change this music one more time. And we'll see how this goes. I'm not sure I will not be demonetized. So the MVPS layout. This is an interesting. These are some pretty interesting zones. As you guys know, normally I draw these zones so that we can figure out where we'll likely find somebody in a breakout, in a pretty standard breakout, I should say. And as far as the names of the zones are concerned, this is Iowa, Nevada, Texas, Oklahoma, Arizona. If you want to use the simplified versions, I would highly recommend using Dragon or Charger, but you can also use whatever you want. They get a little weird in the the middle-ish zones right here as far as what I'm drawing up, and also zones can be changed however you want, right? It may not be exactly it may not make sense when you actually go to play the layout that this is how the zones are drawn. So just my initial impressions of those zones. So now that we've done that, as always, let's take a look at the back line and figure out what sort of gaps exist and what sort of threats are there on our way to like the corner or our initial bunkers. So definitely this is a massive gap up the middle, but you'll likely clear that before you get tagged on that inside shot. Just depends. But this first shot is a threat. It is small, but it is there. So just be aware of that. Coming out a little farther, depending on the blind, yeah. So if somebody uses this blind, for example, and stands right here, they have a pretty decent shot at shooting you, as well as shooting you if you're trying to run to the corner, stopping in front of this can that's straight ahead of me on the Dorito side, and then kicking out farther. There isn't actually a corner bunker here, but once you cross this gap, this little well, yeah, it's really this gap right here. Once you cross this gap, you're pretty safe, again, with only the exception of this crossfield shot. So I would imagine that this is a pretty typical, like, the number 2 shoot cross, maybe? Wait, what bunker am I seeing? Oh, it's this outside bunker. Okay, it's this one right here. That looks a lot less strong from the other side. What bunker is that I'm looking at? Yeah, that is the snake side can. Why does it not look as good on my side? I guess it is there. Yeah, it's wow, it's on this really outside route. So yeah, this would be a pretty crappy lane to run through, in my opinion. They could definitely tag you here if you're trying to go to that Dorito right off the break. But otherwise, if you try to pull up short, I would actually think that diving into this like mini Aztec is pretty safe off the break. If you were having survivability issues, obviously it kind of cramps your Dorito side if you do that. So we'll see where people are likely going to go off the break. But there is not a true corner bunker, so that's really all we have to analyze to start. As far as the snake side is concerned, there is a crossfield gap that you might have to worry about, but I don't know if I would worry about that very much. You do have this little beat that you've got to make before you get tagged, but I would suspect that if you're the number 1, you're definitely safe, and if you're the number 2, you're probably pretty safe, I would say. Yeah, I would suspect you're pretty safe. So anyway, then again, we see the crossfield shot from our perspective, which really is like not super great. It's actually not as good as I thought it was, because you have this gap here and this gap here, really, but that's not that great. So interesting. Heads up, you do have a blinded heads up, meaning you can lob shots over back and forth to these cans. Typically speaking, if you get really low, you can avoid that. And you do have a little bit of a gap that you can hold anybody trying to fill out to the snake, but I would suspect that it's going to be pretty hard to get here and shoot that gap and have that paint get there before the snake guy would dive into the snake one. So we'll need to figure out what gap exists to stop that consistently. This snake side is pretty safe to get out to. I would say that obviously if you come here and you shoot for the corner, if you shoot for the corner in that little valley right there between the 50 brick and that corner bunker and the snake, this little gap here, you do have the ability to drop shots in pretty consistently in the corner. If they dive into it, maybe not so much. You might get low enough. Getting into the actual corner now. It's not a true tape. You can't actually, until you get to the snake itself. But as far as the corner is concerned, you can't see the actual wire. But you can lob in shots over the top of this. Is that a brick or a wedge? It's a brick. This is kind of a cool layout, actually. I think this will be pretty fun to play. And especially that 50. That 50 on the snake side is really interesting with those cakes. But this will be a lot of, like, this will be a really good experience for a lot of people who haven't played, like, corner-to-corner battles where they're mostly blinded out and you have to just look at the paint that's coming your way. Because that'll be a very interesting thing. If you guys are in here right now, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to lightly press the like button. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. So yeah, that'll be a really fun experience. I remember the very first time. Actually, I don't remember the very first time, but I remember all of those experiences early on when I started to become really comfortable, like seeing paint coming my way in these heads up blind battles. And you get a lot of confidence in these types of events where you lovingly press the like button. Yes, absolutely. But like when you get in these long range corner to corner battles where you can't really see each other, but you just have to pay attention to where the paint's coming from, it is really fun and makes you feel like Neo, man. Absolutely. Happy to do it, DK. Thank you. So that's pretty interesting. So it looks like the snake side is actually like super safe. So we need to figure out what it is that can stop the snake from being super free. And so far, it looks like the safest thing to do is that gap on the Doritos side. It looks to be that this gap right here is what you're looking for. So using this can as a blind and pumping paint into this zone, you could even pump paint into that zone if you wanted to. So maybe you shoot, if you're good, you could shoot 3 to 5 balls right here, probably just 3, and then you'd have to transition here. But if you want to ensure that your paint is on, I would just shoot here off the break. So that seems to be, yeah. And in fact, I would probably, well, you have a couple choices. If you're the number 2 on the Dorito side, you can either pump some paint up the middle just to apply pressure to the home guy if he's trying to shoot at you. That's what I would do. If I saw, for example, a 23 stack, so 2 people on the snake side, 3 people on the Dorito side, I would assume that the home guy is going to shoot at me. And in that case, if I was playing behind this can's blind, I would shoot my first shots at the home just to potentially either trade or get them to flinch or something, make my increase my survivability by doing so. And then I would come out here and shoot that snake gap. Remember when you start the blind shot stuff comes back. One sec. Yes, that's an important thing. Sorry, my microphone's like super distracting to me right now because it's not actually like staying. But yes, be aware that when you start shooting a blind shot, you are revealing your position to other people. So just be aware. Change up the angle, change up your positioning. Don't like shoot the blind shot and then transition to something else wider, like wrapping on that same shot, because that's the easiest way to get killed. Like a lot of times when people are playing the corner in this case, if they come here and they start shooting on the outside, this blind shot, and they know there's a guy in the corner, and then they just simply wrap from here with they weren't getting pressure. This is the easiest way to get clapped from the guy next to you, or rather the guy across from you. That's the easiest way. So if you are gonna like take different angles, or you have to wrap very shallow, in my opinion, I would only wrap this far to shoot at the can. If there was a guy obviously in the can in the corner, or come up over the top and gain that dominance, and then just like transition from here. But I would be very, very careful at like wrapping super wide. even though you think you might be safe, right? You could do it if you got low, but I don't even think you can see anything if you do that. So, and again, getting low, even in these bunkers, is still, you could still possibly get shot in the face. So you definitely want to be careful. Okay, so let's continue. So this very straight off the bat seems to be that the Dorito side is going to be playing this gap a lot if you want to be shooting the snake runner. It seems to be one of the only gaps that can consistently kill the snake off the break, unless you send somebody up the middle, because that's always a thing, right? If you just run a guy up the middle, either side, maybe, I don't know. There might be a side that's better than the other. Actually, it would probably be the Dorito side, because otherwise, if you're running, well, you could do either. Let me see. If you actually go to the can off the break. Yeah, I mean, if you go to the can off the break, you can see this. But I just don't know if you need to do that. I would think that the only reason you would run up to the can, and even still you're not that safe, is if, yeah, even still, is if this guy was shooting at you. But you do run the risk of, like, if, for example, you play this gap, whether you run up to the can or not, you do run the risk of getting pinched out from these two people, because you just have no cover. There's just not enough. So interesting observation so far. And getting up to the can really just kind of wastes the amount of time you could be setting paint in that gap and giving them time to make it freely. So I'm not sure that I would do that if you were wanting to shoot the snake. I'd probably just come here and do it. But again, you do run the risk of this guy shooting you. So just be aware. And that does mean then that that's a pretty strong counter. And in fact, that's the play. That means that the snake side is going to be hard to stop, because this guy can come out to this Aztec on the Dorito side and just start pumping in that gap right away as his very first thing he does, as the number one, for example. So the Dorito side could pull up pretty conservatively, where, yeah, it kind of feels like that's what you do, but then this guy's not very safe. The number two on the Dorito side's not very safe. So we got to figure out a place where this guy can live. Because this is a really, really easy target. That's a really easy way to kill that guy if that's the move he's trying to make while he's trying to shoot the snake. Hey, Eli, welcome. Welcome, guys. Hey, if you guys are just tuning into the stream right now, please hit the like button. It does help me out. Oh, sorry. Don't hit the like button. Don't abuse the like button. Be very nice to it. As what did Mike Rhodes say? Lovingly press the like button. Please do so. Appreciate it. Yeah, we'll come back to that. I don't want to get too tunnel visioned on that just yet. So then going into, there's some really cool routes right here. So you could actually, rather than coming to the Aztec right away, you could stop in this gap and shoot paint in this zone, either to hopefully, kill your mirror, or just as a way to blind stuff out. Because, for example, the only person you're going to see off the break is either your mirror, if you're playing the number one, running out, mimicking something you're doing, or potentially this guy playing the can who would be looking your way. But if it's the case that a lot of times this can guy is looking on the inside, I don't think he can do that. I just, now that I look at it, I feel like it's just not safe. But what I was going to say is you could take this inside wing route to come here, and you could either stop here or you could then dive into this Dorito one pretty easily. And it would be pretty hard for this guy to stop you, I would think, because he has to make a decision about whether he's going to shoot his paint here or he's going to shoot his paint here. Again, these are not minor changes on their end is going to lead to these balls landing here versus here, but it is enough of a change that increases your chances of surviving if they're trying to cover both of those zones. So if that can guy's trying to shoot both of these boxes that I drew, they're going to fan their gun very lightly, but it is going to mean that your chances of surviving either one of these routes is not a lot higher, but it will be higher. Otherwise, if he just decides to hedge his bets and say, I'm just going to make sure he can't get into this one, he could probably shoot you with like a 70% chance if he just shoots his paint there, if not higher. So, but that does then free you up to go here, but that's a read and react sort of situation. The nice thing is, if you stop here to shoot at the can, you can see the paint. you can see the paint land either in front of that Dorito or somewhere right here and kind of make your decision based on that. If you wanted to, even if you parked yourself for like 3 to 4 seconds, you could see where the paint's coming from. You could take a longer route into this Dorito corner if you wanted to. You could take a straight route. You know, for example, if you saw that the paint was landing short, you could either hug and go into this Dorito here, or you could just go straight for it. Possibly. That's a big risk, but I'm not trying to make any sort of strong statements right now. I'm just kind of observing and brainstorming some things, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But I do think that making this Dorito is probably relatively safe because you have a lot of options. You can either go into it right away, maybe beat the gun, or again, you can kind of pause in this like gap back here and make a decision based on what you want to do. Okay, let's look at the corner then. So corner to corner battle, and if they make the corner off the top, the van won't stop the corner going, or the can won't stop the corner going right into the snake. Oh, okay, since you can't see the outside of the snake corner. Yeah. So that's the thing, like, if you take this route, for example, to get here, the can can't see you. That's what Dan's talking about. So this snake side is really strong. And in fact, the only person that could shoot you is that same gap, but they couldn't stay there that long. There's no way they could survive that. So you have a ton of options to go into the snake right away if you wanted to. You just have to be careful about, you know, taking too many bites and dying by some kind of random shot. I've been playing Snake a bunch lately. What's a good pair of slider shorts? Anytime anybody asks me about a good pair of pads or pants or whatever, I always tell people the Carbon SC protective bottoms is like S tier. I really have I have not gone back to slider shorts since I started using Carbon. And that's true for their protective top as well. The thing is, they don't have the most padding, and some people really don't like that. Some people think that their padding is like too minimal for them. And that's fine. I initially felt that way too. But the second iteration, and perhaps even the third, I haven't used the third one. Yo, Nick, what's up? Perhaps the third iteration is even more protective, and it kind of looks like it is. But like the second iteration of those protective pants were a lot more padded. And I just love the idea that I never think about my pads ever. Neither the tops nor the bottoms. I literally never think about them the entire time I play. And when people, you know, for those of you who play like on a practice weekend, play like 33 points one day and maybe 30 points the second day, not having to worry about your pants sliding around or giving you rashes is like super, super, super important. Because otherwise you're putting on like talcum powder or Gold Bond or something. But I don't even have to worry about that. It's awesome. Kind of a pretty tough puzzle here, to be honest with you. So there's a lot of things that can stop you, either the Dorito one or the corner, as well as the Aztec and even the Mini W. So it's a matter of figuring out where the bodies are to be able to break out of this corner if you wanted to. But the other option is if you identify whoever's in front of you. So for example, if you chop this in half right here, and assuming the number one's in this position and the number two is in this position, if you are in this corner and you want to move up the field, all you really have to do is take the inside route, because you can essentially completely ignore the number two for a second, shoot whoever you need to get them to flinch, and then come here. You might even be able to just head check and ignore. But again, if the corner guy or if the can stays on you to keep you in the corner, then you're kind of in trouble. But I would assume that that can guy wouldn't stay crossed for forever, for too long. But that's an assumption. And then this is a hard breakout in my opinion, because you have a pretty straightforward heads up battle, but the wrap is wide enough if the guy is in the wing, for example, that it just becomes super awkward. Like this is a pretty wide wrap to see this guy, because the way that these Doritos are angled makes it so that guy doesn't have to snap very, very far to shoot me. So this will be, you know, it's like a traditional 1-2 punch breakout where you shoot the guy in front of you, wrap, and get that guy to flinch and then go. But it's just gonna be pretty tough, I would say, to get out of that Dorito 1 right there, or maybe we'll call it the Dorito 2. I don't know. I'd probably call this Delta, this mini Dorito, and then I'd call this Dorito 1. So then getting into this Dorito 2, then you have essentially the same battle. So you're not super rewarded for that bite if they're in the Dorito if they're in the Dorito 1, which kind of sucks, because like you want to be rewarded by either blinding out this guy so he has to move or something. But like, even if this, for example, even if the guy beats you into that Dorito 2, you can just hold him from here if you have to. You can hold him right here. So that kind of sucks. Thing is, I play in West Texas. It gets crazy hot in the summer. Yeah, but I mean, I've played in 110 degree weather. I don't do it very often, but like, I played with those carbon bottoms. And the thing is, when you get sweaty, they cool you off, in my opinion, but that might just be me. But like, with the wind and stuff, if you get any amount of draft, they cool you off real nice. So so then the question is, what do I get rewarded for getting to this bunker on the inside? And the answer is not very much. You can shoot at the home guy. You can hold a gap if you tiger somebody out of the snake side and they want to fill out. It's not that great. You can shoot at the snake. We'll have to see what the snake angles look like from their perspective, but like, I just don't feel like you're very rewarded for this Dorito. So that's not great. I mean, you apply pressure to a ton of bunkers. So this is a great bunker to get to if nobody's in the Doritos. If they've got some guy over here and their home guy's still alive, then this is a great bunker to be in, because now you can start to really apply pressure. But so I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't try to make this move, but I would say that like, if this guy's still alive in front of you and there's a guy here, I'd probably just chill for a while. But otherwise, if you get to this Dorito, which we'll call the Dorito 3, if you get to this Dorito, the inside reward is probably the corner is a pretty safe. It's not a guaranteed kill, but you'll probably kill somebody in the shoulder, face, pack maybe. But that's a pretty nice shot. You won't kill this guy in the mini W if he's playing on the snake side, and you can't see anybody else, it looks like, unless of course they're playing in this wedge. I'm not sure how common it'll be for anybody to play that, but maybe this is a much stronger move than I'm realizing. If you stand tall, you can fight the Dorito 1, but again, like, kind of sucks that they can still see you. You can't see the Aztec now, which is interesting. So the Aztec, so this is a situation in which like the Aztec would feel a ton of pressure if you got to this bunker. If you came here and they didn't have anybody in the Doritos, and the only guy that they had holding you was this dude, this guy would feel a ton of pressure as soon as you made this move, because he can't stop you from where he is, which means you have free reign to shoot everybody on this side of the field, or at least shoot at them, so long as you have somebody holding that zone. So I promise the SC bottoms are worth it. I play Snake. They're flawless, Eli. Yeah, dude. A lot of Snake people talk about how good the SC bottoms are because they don't slide. But yeah, so like, you could pinch out the home guy from this position. It's not a guaranteed kill, but you could pinch them out. This can guy is dead for sure. The corner guy is not dead for sure, but again, even more so of a free kill. I don't think there's anybody living in this can at this, well before this. If you made it even to this Dorito, that can guy is living behind his gun. Something we didn't put together before. So yeah, maybe the can is a bait. Maybe if people come up here to try and hold the Doritos, it's kind of a bait, because as soon as I get here, if they cross this gap and are in this Dorito, that is so much pressure, because I have to live behind my gun essentially, because if I back off, that snake guy is going to kill me. The snake guy right here in this little window is going to shoot me in the pack. So I kind of feel like this can is a bait, and I think the only reason you would take it is if you were going to leapfrog into some kind of middle move off the break like this, or if you tigered somebody out of the Doritos, like Tiger 1, and then you, I don't know, came here as the number 2 to support your guy. So like, a lot of times, if you've got a guy all the way up here in the front, it doesn't really make sense to follow right behind him as the number 2, as a support guy. Sometimes it makes more sense that if you were here and they get all the way up here, it might make sense for you to come here and then hold this zone so that nobody can get here. That usually makes more sense. And if your home guy is still at the home for whatever reason, and this is the setup that you've got, well, now, as soon as this guy makes this move to hold this angle, this guy can come here if need be and follow up the 1 if need be. It might not make sense for him too, but I love when I'm the number 3, if I'm playing the home guy or the number 3 and my number 2 makes some kind of like up the middle move on their side of the field, that's like and I see that I got a number 1 all the way up on that side of the field, that's like the best feeling in the world, man, as a number 3, because you have so much freedom to do whatever. You can get behind both of them and just rain paint from like a really safe back position. You can start floating back and forth between the back line and just like getting different angles, or you can just like hard push behind the number 1 and help assist them as long as the number 2 stays alive. So Eli, I play in Arizona and I still wear padded bottoms. I use the infamous ones, but the carbons are great from what I hear. Oh, I forgot. I didn't realize that the infamous makes one. Okay, so again, getting into this Dorito, rewarded for any inside shots. We already looked at that. Wrapping, lots of kill potential. Getting into their Dorito, you now have some openings to kill some unsuspecting snake player. This is definitely maybe a shot, actually. I'm not sure. Might exist, might not at the event. If they did take the corner Dorito, this is the first time you'd have to worry about them after you broke out of the Dorito 2. So coming here to the Dorito 3, you don't have to worry about that corner guy until you get here, probably. And then getting here, you do. Dorito 1 is still a problem if you go high. If you go low and wrap, these guys probably just going to come run you down, so you got to be careful. But wrapping on this side now, again, same people. It's not a lot of reward. But the corner guy's dead for sure. So yeah, all of this is gone. This home guy could still live. He could still live. I guess this guy's dead too, but okay. So interesting. So the Doritos seem to be that if for example you have a body alive somewhere in these bunkers on either side, actually we'll draw it like this. If this is what you've got as your puzzle, I don't know how much sense it makes to get here urgently when they've still got this body alive, because even when you get here, you're not rewarded for a ton of kills. You are rewarded, to be sure. There are some kills you'll get for sure. This can guy's dead. This guy's dead. The corner guy is in a lot of trouble, if not dead, if you make that move. But it's just that this move to this move might be very hard to make because there's a really easy hold from the Aztec. The home guy, I think we said he can see you. Let's find out real quick. Yeah, the home guy, actually, the home guy would have to bounce off the corner of the Dorito to kill you. You have to shoot right here. So he might not actually have that great of an angle on you. So maybe it's not so bad. I mean, always push your side of the field. Never not do that. But there are definitely layouts where it doesn't make sense to get to the 50 as fast as possible until something materializes in the field, and that might be this layout. One thing I'm curious about is what this does for us. Does this do anything? Not really. This would be a fun bunker to go to as the number 2 to close out the point really quickly. So if, for example, even though I don't know how you'd get there though, that's kind of awkward. What if you just run the back line to run and gun to the Doritos corner? Yeah, so like I think if you just ran the back line here, you're super safe. And the nice thing is that the only person that can see you if you do that is going to be this Aztec, which isn't nice. This guy is definitely going to be there. I think there's going to be people here every single point. But you do have the ability to blind them out if you stop right here. The only thing that's awkward is this guy. If whatever gap he was running, if he was shooting your way, it's kind of awkward. But you do have a few options. So if you come here and start gunning up, now all of a sudden you can get here for free. You might be able to beat the gun too. If you go here and dive, you might go underneath that Aztec's shots. So there's always a possibility for that. I would just say, yeah, it depends on if you need a quick point or not. And you haven't tried it a lot, but you'd have to stop here probably. I don't think you could do a wider route, but you could. I guess you could. This would be super uncomfortable. I wouldn't do this, but that's because I'm not that guy. But like you could, it looks like if you wanted, you could take this route. And this Aztec can't see you if you do that. It's just kind of awkward. So I need to use the restroom, guys, really quick. I will be right back. Enjoy the music, and I'll see you in a minute. All right. Sorry about the delay. What's up? And then you get to choose whether you bust straight up or dip into the corner. Breakups, they're sweet spotting, bringing their guns high, and the next point go straight into D2. What's the average number of points people that play MVPS? Or what's the format? Race to what? I think it's just the same. Actually, I don't know. I want to say it's just the same as NXL, but I could be wrong. Sorry, I'm realizing this is pretty loud, probably. There we go. Okay. So let's get back to this then. Sorry for that delay, guys. Race to 4. No X-Ball. Interesting. Okay. Is that all divisions? Interesting. So then coming out to the snake again, we established going to the corner. There is a cross shot on the Dorito corner. Not great. There is that blind to blind shot. Getting in here is super safe. And I don't know if there's really any reason for you to stop here unless they do have this like gap dialed in. To me, that don't really feel like you need to stop there. The can guy is going to mess your day up if you take too long. And he truly, I mean, he'll beat you faster than I expect, but you'd have to make sure your first ball is on point when you get here. So I would say you're pretty safe to get to the snake in this layout. Getting into the snake is a true tape, and this is also going to be a really tight spot to live, I would suspect. So depending on what it looks like at the layout, that's actually a really cool cluster. But getting into the snake 1, you're not rewarded with anything on the inside, and in fact, you can't really see much. You might be able to back up and see more of that Aztec on the Dorito side, but I don't know. I can't do that, at least in this. Then over the top shots. The nice thing is, if you wanted, not that I would recommend this, but if you wanted, you can isolate this can guy because you can't see your mirror in the snake. So that's kind of nice. Getting up into the snake, we'll call this snake 2 probably. I don't even think I would call this, I wouldn't call this snake 1 and snake 2. I would just call it snake 2 or snake 1 and snake 2 probably. So getting into snake 2 then, you can shoot at the home if you wanted. But I don't know if I would do that. And then if you back up, you have like a gap to hold the Dorito corner in, but I don't know if there's any value in that. And you obviously have a big gap to hold if you want to be productive to stop the Doritos. You know, if the Dorito ends up being like a pretty hard spot to stop, which I don't suspect it will be, but if it is, or if you hear like 0-2 and you know that you lost both your Dorito guys, it might be worth it for you to just stop here and just shoot a bunch of paint in this little gap right here. Otherwise, if you stand up over the top, you still got the same problems in front of you. You've got this can guy, you've got this back center, and you do have a wedge here, which we'll look at again here in a minute once we walk the snake. Getting up into the 50 snake then, you have this Aztec that's probably almost guaranteed kill. Not free for sure, I would say. If there's anybody in this can for whatever reason, that guy's dead. No way he can survive that. You have the same sort of gap you held originally in the bunker behind you and the snake 2 over on the Dorito side. Over the top, if you're tall enough. I'm not tall enough to do this, but if you are tall enough to do this, you have obviously a lot of pressure you can apply that way. And then getting into their snake is probably where you're going to start doing more damage than anything, which is going to be those Dorito guys are going to... This Dorito guy's probably dead for sure. This guy's probably dead, but he could survive if he's playing really far up. You can't see the corner Dorito very well, but this can guy's dead. This guy's dead. So what I've figured is this is a really safe bunker, this mini W on the Dorito side. It's just that you might not be very involved in the game if you stay there the entire point. But that's a relatively safe bunker to be in, it seems to be, across the board. And then, obviously, getting here and, like, low wrapping, you can do a lot of damage. But interesting field, interesting layout. Let's look at this wedge here. So, if we use this wedge as a blind from the back center, what can we do? So, we can shoot shots over this little wall. We can shoot shots here to hit a blind shot, potentially, or we could shoot here. Towards the Aztec if somebody was running and gunning into it. You can shoot this corner as well, the Dorito corner, or for that matter, the Dorito 1, really easily. So you have essentially the same shot except a little safer. Or not a little safer, a little wider, as this can. Otherwise, if you come up to this bunker all the way, looking Dorito, you've got this huge gap to hold, which makes that really hard because the Dorito now has to wrap super wide. So that's actually much better play, in my opinion, if you're wanting to stop the Dorito push. Rather than risking a body in this can, which I don't think is a very good bunker, I would rather just send somebody over here. I'd probably send my middle guy right here or something watching this, because now if I'm playing a 2-on-2 on the Dorito side with somebody being here and someone in these Doritos here, it means that even if I win this heads up battle, I have to wrap super hard to get this guy to stop shooting at me before I can even take the bite, and that's just too risky. It's one thing if I had to only wrap on the can, right? As you can see, I could, in theory, own the guy in front of me, get this guy to flinch, and get this guy to flinch. It would be super, super hard, and you don't want to do that. But if you had to, you could. It's just that doing those two people and this wedge guy, that's too much. So if you really wanted to gridlock the Doritos to the Dorito 1 in this bunker here, I would probably suggest that guy to go there. Which does mean that if you do break past this little gap here, this guy is going to be in trouble. So that's kind of the one trick pony that this wedge is good at for the Dorito side, at least, because as soon as you break past that, he's living behind his gun. If you check him off here, or if you get here, that guy, you're trading with that guy or killing him, because there's just nowhere for him to go, I would think. Yeah. As far as what he can do on the snake side, it's not a lot. I suspect that if you're tall, which again I am not, but if you're tall, this is probably a great gap to hold right here. You could probably threaten somebody's pack this way. It does look like you could do some damage to somebody's hopper if they weren't paying attention on the inside gap, as on that, what, snake 2 we said. So there's that. If you're tall enough, you could kill somebody who's trying to crawl all the way to your snake 2. You might be able to see their pack right here, depending on how close they are, but I would only say hello. Love your tips videos. Good night, buddy. Too late for me. No problem. No problem. These videos will be uploaded after the fact. And on that note, guys, I am going to be changing my stream schedule. I will probably do it next week, or at least announce it next week. But the stream schedule is going to change. We're going to do more days than just one. How tall am I? I'm 5'8", dude. I'm like 5'7 and a half, 5'8 on a good day. So I'm not that tall. But we are going to change the stream schedule. We're probably going to move to like 2 days a week, if not more. And we're going to be doing it mostly during the day. And it'll probably be for a couple hours. So we'll see how it goes. But this once a week sort of in the evening time is not really working for a lot of people. And it's not working for me either. So we're going to probably change that here next week or the week after. So be on the lookout in the Discord server for that announcement. But anyway, I'm 5'7", so I feel you. Yeah, dude. It's a good thing my wife is short. Makes me feel tall. You do have a really strong gap to hold the can guy from breaking out. So perhaps if you came here, let's see, actually. Yeah, if you came here. Oh, that's a really good gap, actually, right here to shoot the snake runner, which is good. So we found something. So there's two options. You either have an impossible gap, which I would say probably doesn't exist because of how difficult it is to survive. But this gap does exist to shoot the snake guy. Or you could actually just use this to shoot the snake guy as well. Hey! Master. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I don't know if you say Master Man or Masty Man. TBA. Is that Matt? That's not Matt. I would say hello. Love your tips. Oh, I don't think that's... I don't know why I think your name's Matt. There's... TBA is Team Bro Army in a lot of circles that I'm in. So, well, thanks so much, buddy. Thanks for the support. I really do appreciate that. Hey, be sure you're on the Discord server because now you have access to private channels that don't have a lot of information in them right now, but they do exist. So thank you, thank you. Okay, going then back to this. I think this is a decent bunker, and it also gives you a lot of options to launch. So if, for example, you get this guy to flinch or whatever in the breakout, you can get up to this 50 pretty easily, I would say. But the thing is, what do you do here? Sorry, my nose is just... I mean, you can threaten the corner. If they didn't get into the snake, you're in a pretty okay-ish spot. I would say this is a great spot to stop anybody from getting out of this little wing. But I just don't really see very many people stopping there. I don't know. I would suspect that if you hit this cross shot, if you're able to shoot this cross shot from this can here somehow and not be killed doing so, then I would suspect that people will be stopping here in this mini W because they'll be getting those crossfield shots. And if you delay them long enough to get up to this 50, that's always an option. But I'm not sold on that 50 just yet. You could do some damage to the Aztec on the Dorito side. If they're not paying attention or they try to take a shot over the top. And you also do a ton of damage to anybody who tried to play this can. In my opinion, don't play the can. I just don't play that as a primary bunker. BBC, not even close for my name, but it's too late, buddy. I'm sleeping. Thanks. You too. Hey, have a good one, buddy. Thank you so much. Good night. I don't really see there being a reason to play that can from what I can tell. This spot is great, however, to stop somebody from breaking out or to even stop this guy. So this is a great bunker. Are you safe on the Dorito side? As long as they're not on the Dorito 2, you're safe. So maybe you could get away with doing some kind of like... Oh, no, you couldn't. There's no way. I was going to say maybe you could put a guy here and a guy here. There's no way. That's not good. That would not be good at all. In my opinion. You're super, super susceptible to like some kind of up the middle play. But I'm just spitballing. All right, getting over here. This center bunker. This is a great spot to stop this. If you go there off the break, you could probably... Yeah, I mean, it's a 50-50, if not less so. But if you run up the middle... this guy on the Doritos is who's going to ruin your day. So this is a really, really... This whole junction right here is super key in determining whether or not to stall and shoot, go straight into this Aztec, or go in here into the Doritos, or in this outside loop, or this corner, or straight into the Dorito 2. There's a lot of options here. So this is a huge... This Dorito side is actually pretty complicated in my opinion. But my biggest recommendation is don't get baited by this can. I think that can sucks. You can use it as a blind or a leapfrog bunker to get up to the 50, but I would not do anything else besides that. And in fact, if you came here and shot heads up, that would probably be its most redeeming quality, is to come here, shoot heads up, and then use it as a way to get into this 50, but just to get out of there. Because if you can stop them, for example, if you can stop them here so that nobody's in this Dorito gap, and then you can take over that same job in this 50, that's great. That's a great play. But if you get stopped in that can, you are going to die. So just don't get stuck. But this is not a bad play at all, I would say. That's a pretty good play, especially if the number 1 was the guy that came here, and their number 2 either for whatever reason came behind him or double stacked the home. So now if you pinch them out, if this was their positioning for some reason and you're holding the 50, that is a super, super strong play. They could obviously try to match you in some way and come run you down, but just know that that's a perfectly good option for that can. So I think that's pretty much it. Okay, so I guess what we've established is for practice, if this is your first weekend, I would try this gap, but I think you'll find pretty quickly that you can't survive this. And really the only thing that's tricky is what do you do after this? If you're sending your number 1, what I should say is if you play this gap right here, you have to send your number 1 to this Dorito 1 or this corner. You have to do one of the two, but because they can't go here. Your number 1 can't go here, and your number 2 floats out here and reads and reacts based on that. Because I feel like if you go around him, you're going to take all the heat that he's already getting and dying from that, or it's going to force you up this can, and then you're just in a terrible bunker, and you have to go up the middle. So, I don't know. I mean, there's always... you could do this, but I just think that's terrible. I think it's really, really bad, because you're so close together, and you can get stuck by one guy really easily watching that same angle. As far as everything else is concerned, I would say that this tall wedge is pretty solid. What did we say the angle was that they could hold? Or was that? Oh, it's this gap right here that they can then use to come here and here. A lot of really cool moves you can make between these two bunkers. But this is a pretty decent bunker. So I would probably say shoot for the snake. This is a layout where I would just try to make it to the snake every point. And if you are dying, If you're dying here to some kind of cross-field shot or somebody going to this wedge and shooting your way, then pull up short here. You know, there's nothing wrong with that, or go to the corner. As far as where the number 2 on the snake side goes, you do have this option here to play in this gap and float up to that tall wedge, or just come to the can. If you go to the wedge, you're pretty safe to come here, I would say, but your snake side pressure is really bad. Your Dorito side pressure is great, but you're just going to open yourself up to dying to the snake. Otherwise, if you hold them in the back line and you make this move, this bunker is really, really solid to hold somebody from the back line. This is a super, super great bunker. You just have to worry about some kind of guy stabbing you up the middle. This bunker is really good. I would probably say this bunker is better than this one, generally speaking, because of how much it survives from a lot of different things, and the ability, and for the fact that you're really close to a really good bump that is better, in my opinion, than this one. So it isn't to say that you always have to do this sort of route. It's just there's a lot of options between these two bunkers here. That's all I would say. You just have a lot of opportunity to mix up where you go in these two bunkers. And I would think that this gap is really, really big, and it's going to be super hard to make. And I don't even know if you need to make it very quickly. And in fact, if you make this, if you're going to make this move quickly, it needs to be that you've probably tigered somebody out of the Dorito side already. Or you're just like punishing them on their massive mistakes, because you do need to check off this guy right here. You do need to check that guy off. So, and I don't even think they have to be shooting paint at you to kill you. Yeah, the thing that's tough about this tall wedge is they could just aim here and wait till you take the bite and probably just kill you in a reactionary way. So, because some gaps you have to just dump a bunch of paint into to stop them, but that guy doesn't even have to do that in this case. He can just sit here and stare at this and wait, unless you're just like incredibly fast and they're slow to react. So that's not great. Okay, I think that's it. Thanks guys for watching this portion of the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the like button, subscribe, comment down below, let me know what you learned. Also, one thing I forgot to mention, I'll include this in the various videos moving forward, but I have had a lot of interest in coaching, like online coaching services, similar to kind of what I do here for layouts. As I've said before in the Discord server, I only really ever cover large regional events, large regional tournaments or national events, just because it doesn't really make sense for me to spend an hour on stream covering those. So if you have either a local event you want me to help you with, or even one of these sorts of bigger events that you want more one-on-one time with me, where I go into more specific detail about certain things, I provide breakouts for those layouts. As you guys know, moving forward, the only way you're going to get breakouts from me is if you're a member of either the YouTube channel or my Twitch channel, and you're on the Discord server. So that's just because I want to provide more value to people who are supporting me. That's it. Otherwise, you get all access to all my information that I share. But the other way to get that is if you pay for those coaching services. So if you're curious about how much that costs, please give me a message in Discord, and we can talk after that. So I usually try to do I try to ask people to commit to at least 2 hours. Not consecutive, but just 2 hours in general. The first hour, we talk about the layout itself, the things that we've learned from it, even anything that they've learned from it as they've practiced the layout. And then the second hour is usually us coming up with some breakouts and then counters to those breakouts. So anyway, would you do individual player coaching services? Yeah, I would. If you wanted to talk about Paintball IQ, yeah, it might make a little less sense to do that, but yeah, absolutely. I would absolutely do that. I only say it makes maybe a little less sense is because a lot of what I would provide as far as value is just answering people's questions and like addressing their specific needs, which is always, that's the thing about coaching. But a lot of what I would tell you is like probably on my YouTube channel already. So that's the only thing, but absolutely I would do that. So, okay, let's talk about, let me go to a different layout here. Let's talk about if A, then B paintball. So, let me see. What is this? How many events are happening? This is absolutely ridiculous. I'm not going to cover this layout right now. I don't even know if this is like a new layout or for an event that's coming out. I swear I cover more. I feel like I cover SPL and EPL or MVPS layouts every month. Literally. That's what I feel like. But that's okay. So let's talk about this concept of if A, then B paintball. Sometimes you guys will have heard me say it that way. Other times you'll essentially just see me explain what if A then B paintball is. And the way, more importantly, let's talk about how you can essentially be, I want to give you the tools that you need to break down a layout and create if A then B plans, okay? Because a lot of times in the coaching sessions that I have done so far and in these live streams that I've done for layout reviews, I feel like I'm telling you my methods, but there are a lot of things that I go over very quickly, and I could imagine that for some newer players to the sport, they might be like, how does this guy even know that? Or like, how would I even begin to know that? That's not like I'm not trying to like backwards humble brag myself, but there's just a lot of things that like, if you play this high level paintball, you start to create these like mental processes to break stuff down in a very particular way. And I want to kind of share some of that thought process with you. So logic ball, Gabe, you know, baby. Wait, what's is that a typo? Is that a is that a typo? IFTTT. If this is that what that is? Because that's a good shorthand. If this then that. That makes sense. Okay. Yes. If this then that paintball, or if A then B paintball is also a way that I've heard it described. I'm not gonna like break down this layout or apply this logic to this layout, and maybe that's a mistake. We'll find out here pretty soon, because it might make more sense if I actually use like a concrete layout as an example. But let me actually decide. Let me figure this out. Yeah, let me just try to do it with a layout that I'm not actually going to break down, because I feel like what I want to do is give you the tools like generally, and then moving forward, as you guys see me break down more layouts, you'll understand that process. So the very first thing that goes into if A then B paintball is just understanding the layout from like a basic perspective, right? From like a principled perspective. So that's why every single time when I look at a layout, you guys see me do this. Now, not everybody does this. I understand there are some people who literally don't care about anything other than these outside zones, and that's totally fine. I've learned to really appreciate these zones, especially the inside ones, to help me understand a breakout. But it is very, very important to understand at the very beginning of analyzing a layout where you will likely find somebody in a breakout, in a very standard breakout. Because it's one thing for me to say, well, they're going to go here, 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 and here, right? That's pretty safe. That's the back line and some kind of snake bunker push, right? Or I could say they'll be here, 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 and here in any sort of given breakout, right? And that's probably true generally speaking. And usually when people go to the corner, it's usually their front player that options for that. It's also possible for their number 2 guy to like break out to that pretty quickly. But like, we're not really doing anything to understand the layout very more in depth by just simply saying those things. And so rather than approaching it from that, where it's like, well, it makes sense for people to go there, it's really helpful to look at a layout in these zones, right? And from the zones perspective, because now what I'm looking at is movement. I'm seeing people move into these zones where I can then understand what happens when I kill somebody in a particular zone, right? Do I have anybody who is a mod in my, it doesn't look like it. Let me, I don't know how to ban somebody. Dude, YouTube chat doesn't make sense to me. Whatever. Anyway, it's a technology or automation acronym used in business workflows, machines learning. Oh, okay. Workflows, machine learning. Okay, sweet. So if A then B paintball. So again, it's really helpful to just understand the layout from a broad perspective, okay? Because then this can help us understand where we'll likely find people, and from there, what they're likely going to do. Okay, and then it's also helpful to understand just some pretty basic principles about movement within paintball. So you guys have heard me say this all the time, but generally speaking, the first 0 to 15 seconds of a point is where the most movement and chaos will happen, generally speaking. And that's largely because as soon as somebody dives into a bunker, let's say you pulled up short, you were the number 1 and you went to this god, and you saw your guy heads up, dive into the snake right away, your immediate reaction should be, who is the guy that's going to stop me from getting into the snake to respond to that and just shoot at that guy, put him in, and then go. So that's an example of a move that you can make in response to what your opponents do. And that's true across the board, right? The number 3 guy is looking to see if he kills somebody off the break, and as soon as he does, he's going to push that side, generally up the middle. Or if he loses somebody, he's generally going to kick out right away as soon as that happens, right? So that happens in the breakout. That first 0 to 15 seconds of a point, there's so much chaos and so much movement. Okay, so a lot of times when I'm talking about if A then B paintball, I'm talking about those moments, that moment of paintball. Okay, there's also a lot of if A then B paintball that is kind of independent of whatever time is in the game or in a particular point, and that is simply to say that usually there's a threshold where a number 2 can see a front player from a certain bunker. Okay, so for example, again, I'm not looking at this layout in particular, so please bear with me. But let's say, for example, we put our number 2 here, okay? And from this perspective, he can see anything that happens in these 2 bunkers, whatever the number 1 does. But if the number 1 breaks past this zone for whatever reason, and he starts moving up the field, from this position, this number 2 can no longer see that. Let's just pretend that that's the case, right? So those are thresholds, or I think Dan calls them safety nets, or safeties rather. Like, you need to understand that as soon as a person crosses a threshold that you can no longer see as the person playing safety, you either need to have a plan to take back that control or that safety, or you need to pass it to somebody else, and somebody else needs to know that that becomes their job. Okay, it's generally speaking easier to just pass that job to somebody else because you don't have to move to do that. But there are a lot of cases and in a lot of layouts where you have to be the guy to make the move, and it's not always easy because you have paint coming your way, right? So if A then B paintball in the most basic form will usually be dictated by whatever roles or jobs you can do most effectively, and be the guy to keep, holding safety. So the number 2s are the number 2s are like the easiest way to understand if A then B paintball. So if, as the number 2, if the Dorito guy crosses this zone, I can no longer see him, which means I then have to go here almost automatically. Almost without fail, I have to go here in order to hold safety on that gap, okay? And again, that's in the case in which I'm the guy who still needs to be holding safety. It's possible that in an if A then B style of play, you say, if I call Dorito 3, let's say this is Dorito, well, we'll say Dorito 2. So this is Dorito 1 over here, and this is Dorito 2. And again, I can only see the Dorito 1 to Dorito 2 move, but I can't see anything after that in this particular example, right? Well, if I shout then Dorito 2, and our team knows that I can no longer see that from my position, but say, for example, the number 2 on the snake side can, then what that might tell us is that we need to have, that needs to be ingrained in our player's mind, that he needs to take over that job immediately until further notice, essentially. Which, if you create game plans around this, you can run into issues. Excuse me. It's the safer way to hold safety, but it can oftentimes make you, essentially immobilize you, right? Because if we were to use the same example, where I'm here and I've got a buddy here, and I say, hey, he's in the Dorito 2 now, and my buddy knows, oh, that's my job now, I gotta hold that. Well, that means that now his buddy who's in front of him, if he's still alive, is completely alone. Even if we have a back player watching over him, he's alone for as long as the number 2 behind him is holding that crossfield shot. Okay, now that's okay if then I can go here and again take that job back over, which then frees up my number 2 to do whatever. Okay, but the idea of if A then B paintball is all about who does a job particularly well or the best, and who can I bounce jobs back and forth to in case shit hits the fan or something bad happens, right? There's a lot of instances in which the number 3, for example, will have an if A then B that says, if we tiger somebody here, then I will push this bunker. That's a very, very standard move. Super easy, right? So if I kill somebody this side, then I'm going to push this side almost regardless of anything else that's going on. Even if I lose my number 2 on this side and my number 1's over here, I know that if I tiger the number 1 on the snake side, I'm going to go here, and that just means that my number 1 needs to be an island, okay? That's just, again, in some sort of vague examples. The other option is that if we don't tiger anybody, but they break past the zone that I can no longer see, I have to get out of this back center bunker. Because there are some layouts in which the only thing you can see from the back center is essentially the routes people take in the breakout. That after that point, you literally can't see anything else after that. And in fact, I think I could pull up a layout that I remember that was the case in. We scrimmed against Seattle Thunder when we played this layout, so I'm trying to remember. Was it Sunshine State? It had a really crappy Aztec back center. It's not Sunshine State. It was maybe 2020. Wow, 2020. What a weird year. I don't think it was 2020 either. It was a layout that had an Aztec for the back center and essentially like a middle channel that you couldn't really see anything else afterwards. Let me see if I can find it here real quick. I promise I won't be too much longer to find this. I don't think it was any of these, but I was pretty sure we had a Las Vegas open. Yeah, because that's a can. So it had to be 2021. It wasn't Sunshine. I don't think it was Mid-Atlantic. Golden State. It was Windy City, dude. Windy City. So here's an example. So from this back center, I have a lot of views of whatever's going on right here. Okay, I can see the breakout. I can see people stacking up. I can see who survives in these gaps, right? But notice that as soon as that's over, I can't see anything from here to here. Sorry, I'm changing colors. I cannot see anything that's going on right here. Literally nothing. And the same is true for this side. Can't see absolutely anything pretty much from this. I can only see what's going on the 50 if he decides to wrap on me from the home. So this is... Dang, I'm crazy late. Sean, you are absolutely crazy late. I want you to go back to the office, get a tardy pass, and I want to talk to you after class, okay, buddy? It's not going to look well. It's not going to look good on your report card, so I'm very disappointed. It's all good, dude. So, like, this is a situation in which pretty much right after the breakout happened, you needed to get out of the back center and figure out where to go. Now, that wasn't always the case because... So here's what would happen. I remember this layout very well because this is when I played the Doritos side and I have my barrel cam footage against Seattle Thunder on this layout. So what would happen is if, for example, the home guy was like, hey, I need to not stay here because I'm kind of useless. Well, in a standard breakout, this would be a standard breakout. Okay. Oh, excuse me. So you'd have the number 1 go here, the number 2 go here. The number 1 could make it to the Dorito too as well. But this is pretty standard. Okay. So now the issue is if in a standard breakout, the home guy is like panicking because he can no longer see what's going on, their inclination is going to be to go here or go here. The problem is if you make these moves in a 5-on-5 situation, you essentially left a place of safety and went to a place that was much more difficult to survive in to gain a little bit more of an angle on what's going on. But you just ran the risk of just dying out of your bunker right away. And that was the mistake that we were making pretty much the entire first day against Seattle Thunder. And so what had to happen was that one side or the other had to start pushing. And whenever that happened, whenever we gained some kind of advantage on one side or the other, that would then release our number 3 to push that side from a safe place. So for as long as it took one side or the other to make a move, our number 3 just had to chill and be patient. It's possible that in some instances the number 3 will push up here, but that usually only happens after we tiger one or another on either side of the field. But we found that if we had 5-on-5 and we pushed somebody up the middle too quickly, they would just get pinched out and die. Even if they came up here to these we call this the Houston or the Denver. Actually, was that the Denver? I think that was the Dallas. You still well, fair enough, run a huge risk of dying out really quickly, but that was also an option that people would make, is they would come here really quickly. It's just that this battle from the 50s gets really scary when you do that. So that's an example of like if A then B for the number 3. A lot of if A then B for the front player is going to be if I can get my heads up guy. Yeah, they did have a rough event which sucks because no, it wasn't this one. I don't think, was it? I remember that there was one event that they did really well on right after they scrimmaged us, and we made a joke constantly that it was because of us. And I can't remember if that was Sunshine State or if that was this event. Yeah, I can't remember which it was. I don't think we scrimmaged them twice in a year, but maybe we did. So what was I saying? Okay, we established if A then B is pretty well, not straightforward, but like if A then B presents itself to a number 3 in the form of, if I lose a body, what do I do with that? Okay, if I lose a body, do I fill out? Probably. If I kill a body off the break, does that cause me to push that side? Probably. It usually means that you're push up the middle or support that side in some kind of like strong outside push, right? So for example, if your number 2 is here and your number 1's in the snake and you tigered one out of the snake side, you might consider going to like the corner. This corner bunker is bad, but like in other situations, it might make sense to do that. Or it might make sense to, again, push up the middle to support that push in a different angle. Okay, so you have essentially like a 3-man operation pushing that side. So that's kind of how the number 3 plays. It's also possible that the number 3 has a lot more up the center moves that are relatively safe, but that they make those because those zones get passed. So for example, again, we're going to zoom back out. We're not going to analyze this layout specifically, but it's possible that, for example, the number 3 is able to do whatever it is that they want for most of the point until somebody crosses a zone that the number 2s can no longer hold. So if this number 2, for example, loses the guy in the number 1's position on the opposite side of the field, if he crosses this number 2's zone right here, then it might mean that if this guy says, he either can have a call out or he can just say a bunker in particular, Dorito 2, Dorito 3, whatever, it might mean that this guy is the last hope to prevent him from getting to the 50. It might mean that that's an automatic trigger for this dude to make that punch up the middle to then hold that gap. Which, if that's the case, then it kind of frees up or at least alleviates the pressure for the number 2 to make that move, but he can still support his number 1, right? And the way that you would do that is you'd wrap and just put in the guy behind him. So obviously you have the number 1 here that's kind of getting up the field quickly, but you have at least this kind of positioning that prevents him from getting up to the 50 right away, and it's just kind of a race at that point to whoever gets to the 50 to hold that. Okay. Obviously, the further up you go in the middle, the more exposed you usually become to one side or the other, right? The angles towards the middle from the 50s are not in favor of that guy, whoever pushes up the middle. You usually get pinched out pretty quickly. So it's not always the case that if they pass my zone, I need to go here, because let's say, for example, you heard 50 snake, but then you heard Dorito 2 in the same example that we showed last time. Excuse me. So their front players here on the snake side and their front players here on the Dorito side. And let's say you're the 3 here. You've got a guy here and here. So, I just undid all that. Sorry, one sec. So if, for example, you are in the number 3's position and you hear Dorito 2 and 50 snake, well, even if you know that you are the guy to hold that gap from this position, you probably can't make that play because the 50 snake is going to chop you up. That's always a possibility. Okay. So obviously we don't always have the information we need to make those decisions accurately, right? Sometimes we won't even know the guys in the 50 snake when we go to make that move, but that's just the nature of paintball. That's the chaos of paintball. And the higher up the divisions you go, generally speaking, the better your information is going to be, because people are constantly trying to fight to collect that information, right? That's the biggest difference, in my opinion, between top level pro, bottom level pro, and pretty much all of semi-pro, is that like, and I would actually say that all of the pro division does this relatively well, but it's just that you are responsible for the most part for collecting the information that you need to play effectively, and everybody does that individually. So you have 5 players who are all doing what they can to gain visual information, to gain audio information, to gain as much information as they can, and then contributing to this conversation that everybody's having about where your opponents are. And if you guys are not in the Discord server, you're doing yourself a disservice. Get on there, look at the video that Dan Holiday posted in there. It's a great example of like just communicating, talking, figuring out where the bodies are. Okay, so to go back to this point, if A then B paintball, I think the last thing, so we've kind of talked about what the number 2s do. We talked about the number 3s, and now just the number 1s. The number 1s, in my opinion, are relatively straightforward if A then B. And there's kind of like a binary, in my opinion. So if the number 2 dies, like let's say I'm the number 1 and I notice that the number 2 dies, the guy in front of, the guy behind the dude I'm fighting, if this guy's protection dies, my immediate response is to try and win the gunfight and then take the bite and take a big bite if I can. Okay. Not always the case, but if possible, I will do that. The only thing that will stop that move in this case is wherever the middle guy's looking. So my if A then B is, if the number 2 is dead and the number 3 is not looking my way, then I will shoot the guy in front of me and take a big bite or take some kind of bite. It doesn't have to always be big, but that's a pretty straightforward if A then B. Okay. The opposite is true, where if the number 1 dies and the number 2 is looking, obviously the number 2 is looking my way, but if the number 1 dies, then I will wrap to try and contain the number 2. And if the number 3 is looking my way or not, I will try to, take that bite. So for example, as a number 1, you kind of know that you always have to kind of fight 2 people. Okay. You have to fight the guy in front of you, generally speaking, if he's not blinded out to you. A lot of times he will be. But if he's not blinded out to you, you have to win that fight first, and then you have to get the guy behind him to at least flinch. And in that window is usually when people make moves. The only thing that sucks when you try to move in that window is the number 3 if he's looking your way. That's generally speaking the guy that's going to kill you. It's not always the case that like some crossfield snake guy is just like waiting for you to take a big bite. And that's because that distance is so great that you can usually just bite fast enough that he can't really respond to that move. Okay. So if I then don't have to worry about the number 1 because he's dead, then all I really focus on is just that same problem, but with one less person. So now all I have to really do is find out where the number 2 is. And so if he can see me, I do the same thing. Shoot at the number 2 to own that, and then wrap to get the 3 to flinch, or just find out where he is. And if he's not looking at me, take the bite. Or if the number 2 can't see me, then as soon as the number 1 dies, I just take the bite almost always. I mean, I check off the middle. Of course, you should always check off the middle. But like that's an even more straightforward if A then B. Okay. Obviously, if both people are dead, if we got a Tiger 2 on my side of the field, then all I'm doing is trying to find where the middle guy is and almost running and gunning the entire time. Now, there is definitely some gaps you can die to when you do this because you're generally moving slower. So you do have to be careful about that. But generally speaking, if you have intentions to get to a bunker that is safe on against the opposite side of the field, which in this case, the 50s could see each other. So this isn't necessarily safe unless you play this outside corner. But if you Tigered 2 on this side and you ran up and got to this outside corner and ran and, run and gunned all the way there, and you did it quickly, you could get there in time before the snake side could probably respond to that, even if they had both players alive, and then just start killing the number 3 or punishing them super hard for that. So a lot of the front player is like, do I have anybody dead? If so, how does that influence what I do? And if I have 2 people dead, what do I do then? And in most cases, it's like get on your feet, run and gun, and get up the field as fast as possible. In most cases. And so yeah, like as far as where people are specifically, there are some instances in which you can punish people for like bad positioning. So on this layout in particular, the snake corner was like the only reason you went to the snake corner, if I remember right, was to get into the snake in a different route. The snake corner itself was not a good bunker, if I remember right. So if, for example, you as a number 2 saw that their guy went to the snake 2, or excuse me, the snake corner as the number 1, and the other guy behind him went here, and let's say you guys took a bite into the snake, and then you're behind this. This is a situation in which like your if A then B is like, if they go to this corner, I'm just going to bully the crap out of them as much as I can. And in fact, actually, I don't even know if you can see that corner from here. Weird. Who is it that makes that corner bad? Maybe I'm thinking of a different layout. I must be thinking of a different one. I remember there was a layout that we practiced against them that was like the corner was not a good bunker. You wanted to get out of there. But as I recall, this corner was just a good bunker to like run around to dodge the cans paint. But anyway, that's all to say that like if you can identify bunkers like in the last layout we looked at, the SPL layout, I feel like that can is really bad. So if you find that somebody goes there, then your reaction should be, who is it that can punish that guy easily and safely? How can we make that guy's life a living hell? And if you can figure out who on the field can do that job the best, then as soon as you hear that call, if you know you're the guy that can either make the move to the bunker that can do that, or you're already in that bunker, it means that it's your job to make that guy's life a living hell, right? That just needs to be automatic. Okay, so that's why understanding what every bunker's job is, what it does well and what it doesn't do well, that's the very first thing you have to understand before you can even do if A then B paintball. There's literally no way you can approach the paintball in this way without understanding that. And so generally speaking, it's just a matter of like, what can you see when you're in a particular bunker? Who do you have a really good threat against, and who is threatening your survivability? Those are usually the things that you just have to put together. As always, great information. I'll finish the stream later. Sounds good. We're just about to finish up here, guys, in the next like 20 minutes or so. So thanks, guys, so much for watching. I appreciate everybody who's liked the stream. Again, as a reminder to those who are here, the stream time will be changing. I don't have the time specifically yet, but it will be changing. I think we're going to move away from doing evenings, and we're probably going to do 2 or 3 streams in a week, but it's going to be during the day. And it's just going to be kind of these long form streams. We're actually... if my audience isn't going to flame me for it, we're actually going to incorporate probably more games in the stream. And then whatever sort of paintball content we cover, whether it's opinion stuff, hot takes, reactions to videos, layout reviews, whatever the case is, those will be chopped up into their own respective videos and uploaded to the channel. But as far as just like the live streams are concerned, I'm just going to do long form live streams and then chop them up afterwards. So that'll be just a much better way of engaging with you guys. So, because it sucks to have to like go to different stream links after these are done. So, okay. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't know if this is even going to become a YouTube video. It's kind of a ramble, but maybe I'll get my thoughts put together better and explain it a little more cohesively. So, yeah, I think that's it. If A then B paintball. Excuse me. I think I've always viewed paintball in that way, or not always. I have viewed paintball in that way for a while, but the person that put that so succinctly in my mind was Mike Bianca from New Orleans Hurricanes when we scrimmaged them. He had a beautiful way of looking at the game. And a lot of times, and one of the things that I remember he talked about was he views, we talk about on this stream, we talk about these zones, but the way that he described it was more of like lanes or channels and how you get to, like, essentially routes into how you get to places. So the difference between what I do and what he does is that mine are, when I talk about zones, they're usually a bit more rigid than what he talks about. So in a lot of cases, a route or a channel up the field is going to be much more curvy and fluid. So like this might be how he views the field, right? Are these channels. And so in this case, like, yes, you still have like this channel, and this channel to get up the field, right? We know what the snakes is almost every time. That makes sense. And in some cases, those channels are going to look like this, okay? They're not going to look super straightforward. I just drew them that way because it was easy. But it's also possible for a channel to exist like this. And really the difference between a channel and a zone, in my opinion, is just that a zone is kind of, it's devoid of any sort of context to what works and what doesn't, because it's not what was that noise? Oh, my OBS studio disconnected and reconnected. Are we still live? Are we good? Everybody here? Looks like it. Okay. So that's a big thing, right? Is just we draw those zones because it helps us like roughly find out where people are. But what it doesn't inform us on is what routes we can take to survive getting into that zone. Okay. So if, for example, we wanted to know how we could get to this Dorito 3 off the break successfully, those zones don't do that. It doesn't tell us that at all. But a channel or a route will, okay? So in this case, this is a route that we can make. We can make it. It's really hard to make, but you can make it. So that's something to consider when you're talking about routes and zones. But he thinks about paintball a lot in that way. Mike Bianca does. And so when he figures out what those channels are that people can make to get into certain spots relatively safely, then he then comes up with like, well, if they get to there, what's our response to that? So for example, let's imagine that these are our opponents on this side of the field, and we know that this channel exists. We know this route exists, okay? So this is the if. If they take this route, then what do we do? Well, if we broke out in a standard breakout where we sent a guy here, here, and here, we don't even care what's going on the snake side. But if we saw this play being made and we were the number 2, then our response needs to be, I'm just making this up, but then our response needs to be that we have a call for that, whether that's just Dorito 3 or whatever. And then that tells our number 3 that he needs to get up to this Aztec as quickly as possible to then take this job over, right? Now, the advantage to this type of play is that it feels very oppressive to play against. Okay, it almost feels like, sorry, I'm going to draw this with a different color. It almost feels like no matter what I do, it's not good enough because they're going to have a response to it, right? The disadvantage to this type of play is that their responses can usually be very predictable. And that's simply because if you understand, like I understand that when I take this route, the only thing that can stop me is this bunker off the break, right? If I take this bunker off the break right away, really the only guy that can, I mean, again, not actually the case in this layout, but if I were to try and stop somebody from winning the point from this position, either by just killing everybody from here or getting into the 50, I need to understand what bunker stops that immediately. Otherwise, I'm just going to lose the point, right? Well, if I know what that is as this guy, then I know where they have to be. And if they don't go there, then I can just win the point. Okay? So if for example, I'm playing against a team that's not as good, and I take this bite off the break, and they don't send a guy here, like maybe I even check it off right away. I just look on this inside route and stare at that guy, and he doesn't make that move. Well, then I'm clear for takeoff. I can just go right away. I can get to the 50, and I can start chopping people up, okay? So that means that if you understand paintball from this if A then B perspective, and you are reasonably certain that you've analyzed the field as correctly as possible, then it generally means that, yeah, like I can put together what is a mistake on their part and what is not a mistake. And if you respect your opponents to make those moves, kind of like I hate to use this example because I can't pretend that I know much about it, but like if you analyze high-level poker, you'll find out very quickly that like it is very systematic. There's a lot of things that people make that are very straightforward, but it's just a lot of math. It's a lot of heuristics, but it's also just understanding what the table is showing them likely to have based on how they're betting, based on what the pot odds are, so on and so forth. Again, I'm not going to pretend like I'm a poker master. I'm not. But there's a lot of clarity that comes to you when you understand, well, if I'm holding the ace of spades, that means that they can't have the ace of spades when they're trying to go for a flush draw that's like a high flush draw or something like that, right? That's you going for the high flush draw. So in this case, if I get to this 3, all I'm really trying to say is I just need to make sure this guy's not here in this example, and if he's not, I'm clear for takeoff. I don't know why it took us so long to say that, but that's it. That's pretty much it, guys. I'm just gonna wither away and die because I've been talking so much. Oh, hey, who here plays World of Warcraft? Anybody playing Wrath of the Lich King Classic? Because I'm level 41 and I'm losing my mind. I'm trying to hit 70 before Wrath of the Lich King comes out, and it's taking forever. I think that's it, guys. Let's actually watch this New Orleans Hurricanes video here real quick. Sorry, one sec. Big shout out to Mike Bianca. Go like this video. Anytime I watch a video on stream, I always like to support people. It's only 2 minutes long. We'll just watch this really quick, and then I think we're gonna call it a night here. So, never tried it. Was always a RuneScape guy, dude. RuneScape. I never played RuneScape. I was literally the exact opposite. But I knew a lot of people that played RuneScape. A lot of people that played RuneScape. Joey Blute and his wife. Bluth. Hey, have a good one, dude. Thanks, Dan. I really appreciate it. I'm just going to watch this video and call it a night, so. It's a cool song. Kind of weird slow-mo, not going to lie. That's kind of a cool video. He's been getting better. Mike has, at least. Phil Pod with another pod. There's Drew Bell. Wonder what layout or what field that is. This is what practice? Chicago? Yeah, man. I mean, unless you're filming at like 240 frames, like slowing things down is not going to look very good. If you're filming at like 30 FPS, slowing things down is not going to look great. Sweet. Nice video. Nicely done. At what point would you think a team should get a coach? Honestly, I think a team should get a coach at any point. The moment they want to take the game serious, is my opinion. I mean, obviously, there's a question of like affordability or practicality, right? Like you can't just like reach out and be like, hey, does somebody want to coach us essentially for free? And obviously people, you know, don't want to step back as a player to coach. So that's a trick. That's a tricky thing. But like, if you want to look at it from a cost perspective, then yeah, I would probably say D3 is a good spot to start hiring a coach. But if you want to like start winning quickly and early, and you want to take the game very serious and your goal is to like progress up the ranks as fast as possible, getting a coach as soon as possible is the answer, in my opinion. So it's hard, like, because on our team, we were fortunate enough to have a coach in the most recent, in my most recent team with Bro Army. But like all the teams I played with before did not have a coach. We always just had player coaches, and none of us wanted to take a step back and coach because, one, we were losing a core person if they did that. But it was also like we were still having fun playing, right? But yeah. So anyway. Okay, that's it, guys. I think that's it. I've spoken enough. I've rambled enough. Be on the lookout for when the stream schedule changes. Be on the Discord server. You guys know what to do. Thanks again for the new member. I know he's not here anymore, but you guys have a good one. I'll see ya.